As 2025 unfolded, what Prince Harry and Meghan Markle had boldly billed as their definitive make-or-break year in California descended instead into a landscape of deepening marital friction, whispered divorce rumors, and a homesick Duke increasingly adrift from the Hollywood orbit his wife had so carefully cultivated, leaving observers to wonder whether the fairy tale exile they once proclaimed as liberation was quietly unraveling under the weight of separate ambitions and unresolved longing for roots left behind. I'm glad you've joined me as we begin to unpick the layers of this development. One cannot help but picture the scene behind the high walls of that sprawling Montecito estate throughout much of last year, where the couple entered 2025 determined to present a united front of reinvention, yet found themselves pulled in opposite directions almost from the outset. Meghan, ever the driven architect of her own narrative, threw herself into the glossy machinery of her lifestyle brand and the accompanying Netflix series, scheduling fittings, recipe tests, and promotional calls that often kept her immersed until late into the evening. While Harry, one senses, grew ever more restless with the ceaseless round of Hollywood schmoozing that felt increasingly alien to a man shaped by military discipline and royal duty. A source within the inner circle has confided that the atmosphere at home became one of polite but palpable strain, the kind where conversations about the children's schooling or weekend plans would subtly pivot into coded discussions of future plans, with Harry privately wrestling with a profound sense of displacement that no amount of California sunshine could quite dispel. In his quieter moments, one imagines him replaying memories of crisp English mornings, the easy banter of old comrades, and the familiar rhythms of a life he had once taken for granted, all while confronting the dawning realization that his wife's vision for their shared future remained firmly anchored on American soil. The pressure of mounting professional setbacks only amplified this emotional undercurrent, as deals that had once promised security began to falter, and the couple's once intertwined brands started to show visible cracks. Long-term, such divergence carried the quiet threat of eroding the very foundation they had built together. For if Harry's growing homesickness continued unchecked, it risked not only personal isolation, but also complicating any fragile overtures toward reconciliation with his family back in Britain, leaving the children caught between two worlds that seemed ever further apart. Yet even amid these tensions, the Duchess maintained an outward composure that friends described as resolute, though a source behind closed doors suggested her own inner monologue revolved around protecting the empire she had painstakingly constructed, viewing any pull toward the United Kingdom as a regression laced with painful memories she had no desire to revisit. By the time autumn arrived, the separate trajectories that had simmered beneath the surface erupted more openly into public view, with Meghan fully absorbed in the launch cycles of her rebranded lifestyle venture and the holiday installment of her streaming project, commitments that demanded weeks of focused energy and left Harry navigating his own calendar of Invictus-related travels and speaking engagements that often took him across continents without her at his side. A well-placed source close to the couple revealed how these diverging schedules created not just logistical distance, but an emotional one as well, with Harry reportedly confiding to longtime acquaintances that he felt increasingly like a supporting figure in the very story he had once helped script, his own initiatives overshadowed by the relentless Hollywood machinery that defined their California existence. One can almost hear the internal conflict in Harry's reflections during those solitary evenings, the weight of having stepped away from his birthright now manifesting as a gnawing regret for the camaraderie and structure he had forfeited, while the relentless scrutiny of tabloid headlines only heightened the sense of being adrift in a landscape that prized reinvention over reflection. The surrounding pressure was immense, compounded by the financial realities of maintaining their high-profile life amid reports of tightened budgets and the emotional toll of family fractures that refused to heal. Insiders noted how even small decisions about public appearances became battlegrounds, where Meghan's pragmatic approach to visibility clashed with Harry's instinctive protectiveness, forged in the fires of his own turbulent upbringing. For the long term, this pattern of parallel lives carried profound consequences. potentially diminishing the cohesive brand they had marketed so aggressively, while raising questions about how sustainable their union could remain if Harry's yearning for British soil grew stronger, a development that might one day force difficult conversations about custody, residences, and the legacy they would leave for Archie and Lilibet. Still, a source within the inner circle emphasized that beneath the friction lay a genuine devotion, though even that bond was tested by the cumulative disappointments of a year that had promised redemption, but delivered instead a steady erosion of the optimism with which they had begun it. As the year drew to a close, the cumulative strains of these separate paths and Harry's evident longing for reconnection with his heritage culminated in what multiple insiders characterized as the most emotionally taxing period of their married life, a time when whispers of divorce gained fresh momentum amid reports of heated exchanges that struck at the core of their differing worldviews. Behind closed doors, the pressure cooker of unmet expectations, professional recalibrations, and familial yearnings created an environment where even routine interactions carried an undercurrent of unresolved questions, with Harry reportedly voicing frustrations over feeling directionless on what he perceived as his wife's territory, while Meghan navigated the demands of sustaining momentum in an industry notoriously unforgiving of hesitation. A source behind closed doors painted a picture of late-night conversations heavy with the weight of decisions about the future, the inner monologues of both revealing a man haunted by what he had left behind and a woman fiercely committed to forging ahead without looking back. The long-term ramifications loomed large, from the potential reconfiguration of their joint philanthropic efforts to the very real possibility that prolonged friction might one day necessitate legal considerations affecting everything from assets to the children's upbringing in a manner that would inevitably draw the world's gaze once more. In the end, 2025 served as a stark reminder that even the most carefully curated reinventions carry within them the seeds of their own complications, leaving the Sussexes to confront whether their bond, tested by distance both geographical and emotional, could weather the uncertainties that lay ahead into the new year. What emerges from these layers is a portrait not of outright rupture, but of a marriage quietly recalibrating under extraordinary pressures, where Harry's homesickness and the couple's divergent professional callings have woven a narrative of intrigue that continues to captivate those who follow the royal story with a discerning eye. The Duchess, with her trademark poise, has continued to project forward momentum, yet one cannot ignore the subtle toll such dynamics may exact over time, particularly when viewed against the backdrop of a year that insiders openly labeled among the most challenging of their lives together. For Harry, the pull of Britain remains a persistent undercurrent, shaping his reflections and perhaps his private hopes in ways that contrast sharply with the Californian idyll they once embraced so publicly. The surrounding atmosphere of speculation, fueled by leaked tensions and public hints, only adds to the drama that has defined their post-royal chapter, with long-term consequences that could reshape not just their personal union, but the very way they are perceived on both sides of the Atlantic. As we watch this chapter continue to unfold, it is the human elements, the regrets, the ambitions, the quiet frictions that render the tale so endlessly compelling, inviting us all to consider the true cost of the choices made in pursuit of a different kind of life.